Hello, my name's Toby Thompson. I'm here with Simon Knox, Professor of Brand Marketing here at Cranfield. Simon, we're talking about the doctoral supervisory relationship. How would you describe the process of doctoral supervision here at Cranfield?
Well, Toby, the process has been developed over a period of about 20 years. And what is very significant about the process is the various staging posts that we go through for the students to make progress. And we have, beside one-on-one supervision, we have supervisory panels who are usually 3 people, including a chairman, subject expert, which is the supervisor, and another who will have some knowledge of the literature or the methodology that the student is proposing to adopt.
Sounds quite heavy-handed. 3 sounds a lot.
It is, but you know, the alternative is dire. In other words, if it's just a supervisor-student relationship, which I see in many universities, then the relationship can go all over the place, and there's too much of a dependency from the student to the supervisor.
So you're spreading it over the 2 other individuals.
Exactly, and it also formalizes the process. So, you know, a supervisor's view or worldview of the student's work is one thing, but having 2 or 3 other senior colleagues contributing and looking at the work from a different perspective can be very constructive and very helpful, because the student will either hear an endorsement of some of the critical feedback that the supervisor provides, or might hear a slightly different story, and the truth or the opportunity may lie somewhere between those two critical feedbacks. It is a critical process.
So what extent then can the student expect to tell you what they want from that relationship?
Well, I believe in a mutuality. Whenever I have a prospective doctoral student, I will either sit down or have a telephone conversation with the student about what they can expect from me, what can they expect from the institution, and what I would expect from them as an individual doctoral student. So it's a sort of pretty full and frank discussion, because it's got to work for both of us. This is a relationship that can go on for 4 or 5 years in the case of a part-time PhD student. So you've got to feel comfortable with the intent and the motivation of the student, and equally the student has to feel comfortable with a prospective supervisor. If there's a clash of personality or a complete mismatch in sort of ideology or methodological approach, then it's going to be troublesome right from the beginning. And also what's critically important is for students to be able to articulate as they go along what it is they think what is their research question, what is the literature domains that the student is going to be engaged in. Because what I discovered a long time ago is that what you think a student is doing could be completely different to what the student thinks they're actually doing. So until you have a commonality of artifacts, which is usually a sort of a written short paper on a particular issue, then you have something definite to talk about. And these panel processes are formulated around written documents.
So can you describe a panel, a typical panel? What would happen on a panel?
So for instance, if you take the case of Colin Gruar, we had a panel consisting of a chairman and one of my professorial colleagues who has an economics background but has some knowledge of the particular methodology that was being adopted, and myself. So that conversation with Colin was opened up the long view of what the thesis would look like, because my professorial colleague is very experienced in looking at what a PhD is, or a DBA in this instance. And so he was able to guide us on the sort of relative not only quality but quantity that was required to fulfill the obligation of a DBA. So that was a useful feedback, as well as the chairman's sort of summary comments of what was said and what was recommended during the panel review.
So does the relationship stop at the end of the DBA? That's it, and it doesn't carry on?
Not at all. No, I think, if you're sort of building a relationship, and various colleagues describe it like a marriage, and that's not an inappropriate description, because you get to know the student well. They get to know you, what your buttons are, what their hot buttons are. And these relationships are not without some disagreements. So once the period is gone, there's usually, getting a DBA or PhD is a major achievement, and one has to have respect for anyone that is able to achieve this, and that mutual respect certainly grows, and you get to know each other pretty well. So there is a life after a DBA. In Colin Gruar's instance, he's become a consultant, a successful consultant, and we still have discussions about opportunities. For instance, he is now studying for a mentorship diploma or a qualification so he can mentor senior executives. I think it's a really good idea for him. We've had discussions about this type of training. So the relationship goes on. Sometimes there may be mutual interest in writing up a paper from the doctoral work, and Colin and I have written one paper. And it's particularly true of PhD students who, generally speaking, are likely to become academics. So it's absolutely critical for them and for the supervisor that there's a mutual flow of academic papers from the work. This enables the students to apply successfully for lecturing jobs. So there are mutual interests post the DBA or doctoral experience, of which it may be social or it may be business or information sharing.
Sounds like a win-win. Simon, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.